Good evening. We will call to order the City of Rockford Strategic Planning Session for Monday, September 29th, 2025. This evening we are fortunate to have Chaplain William Martin with us to provide an invocation.
Let us pray. Eternal wise God, our Father in heaven, we come. Thank you for this day and this way. We pray now, God, for our city, our country. We pray, God, for every elected official. And then we pray, God, for this meeting. Let this meeting be enriching, and let it do what it's designed to do. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Amen. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Clerk, could you please call the roll?
Toomberg. Here. Prunty. Here. Wilkins. Here. Hoffman. Here. Granith. Here. Beach. Here. Salgado. Here. Meeks. Here. Bell. Here. Bonnie. Here. 10 present.
Excellent. Thank you. We have a quorum. Before we get to our public speakers, we do have a special guest with us this evening. This evening, we are really fortunate that we have Cody Diaz with us. So Cody, if you would like to come forward, if your family even wants to come forward, they can. We won't bite. Right here. Perfect. Okay. So I already messed it up. It's Cody Ortiz. So my apologies. What I won't mess up, though, is the remarkable work that you did. You live at 1107 North Avenue, and there was a major fire that took place at 1107. And the way I understand what took place, and first I want to say a sincere thank you to Alderman Bell for helping bring this to our attention today. But you showed just incredible character, incredible courage on that morning. And I know that fire. I don't live too far from you, and my mother lives about a half a block from you. My other brother lives 2 blocks from me. But we're not all watching you, Cody. But I heard a lot about it. I could hear the engines from my home. I got phone calls from my family and knew it was a major fire. And you went in and helped save your little brothers. And then you went back in and helped save your parents. And Cody, that's really remarkable. Someone I'm a big fan of, Chip Stoner at the Boys and Girls Club, also a place that you visit occasionally, right? Regularly, sorry. Stated to me a few words that I just want to make sure that is on the record, because I think if someone said this about me, I would want to know. Mm-hmm. Said that you have always shown yourself to be kind, responsible, and dependable. That's 3 of the best things you can be. I just want to say on behalf of the City of Rockford, we could not be more grateful for your service and just for your strong character, your strong courage. We're so fortunate that These 4 amazing family members are with us today because of your great work in our fantastic fire department. And before I turn you over to our fire chief, we provide something to residents who go way above and beyond. And it's a challenge coin just commemorating the work that you have done, that you've went way above and beyond, something that is beyond our normal expectations. And you certainly deserve this. And I just genuinely want to say congratulations and thank you for your courageous work.
Thank you.
Yep. And now I'd like to turn it over to Chief Carlson.
Thank you. Again, I think it's important that we recognize great acts or things that happen through our community that are positive. We hear enough of things that are not so positive, and so the ability for us to recognize Cody and his ability to recognize the problem, to alert his family, to get out of that home and save lives. Just some quick statistics. To date, we've lost around 1,500 people in residential fires just so far this year. So that's throughout the country. Usually on average, we're up around the 2,500 range, thereabouts across the country. So we have a lot of fatalities with fires in our community throughout the country. So we just want to recognize that when good things like this happen, it's a good thing for us. And we always, Fire Prevention Week or month, starting in October. We have an open house on Saturday at Station 3 and another one at Station 5 the following Saturday. But we just want to get out there and recognize these individuals that do great things for us. Cody, we also have a challenge coin that the fire department has that we want to give to you, and it talks about some of our core values on the fire department. It's professionalism, respect, integrity, dedication, and empathy. And we just hope that throughout the rest of your career, your life, that you embrace some positive role models, positive characteristics, and that you're already showing at your young age. So I'm sure everyone's appreciative of it. We are also. And we just want to say thank you for your efforts here, and we're glad you were there.
Just want to again say thank you. Really remarkable, the work that you did to help save lives. Want to say thank you. We're so happy that all of you are with us. Yeah, I bet. You're probably going to have a decent Christmas or birthday, whatever you got coming up next. But just genuinely want to say thank you and congratulations. Appreciate it. For sure.
Thank
Great
you.
to meet
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah, appreciate it. Thanks for coming.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you. Next, we have our public speakers. We have 4 public speakers this evening. I want to remind our public speakers that there's a microphone on the back right as well as the back left of council chambers. And you'll have 3 minutes to address City Council. I'm hoping that my phone will beep when the end of those 3 minutes occur, but if it does not, I will then make you aware that the 3 minutes have expired and ask that you close your comments. Our first public speaker this evening is Prophet Yusuf.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. In the book of 2 Timothy, the first chapter, the 7th verse, it says, "For God did not give us a spirit of timidity, but a spirit of power, of love, and of self-discipline." What I want to speak about tonight, don't believe the lies they say about immigrants. Undocumented immigrants pay higher tax rates than top 1%. Undocumented immigrants contribute $96.7 billion in taxes in the United States in 2022 and paid higher state and local tax rates than the top 1% of households in the vast majority of states. A study published July 30 revealed the Institute on Taxation and Economic Policy study found that undocumented immigrants paid $59.4 billion in federal taxes and contribute an additional $37.4 billion to state and local tax coffers in 2022 per capita. They paid $8,889 in total taxes. The study also found that if all current undocumented immigrants were allowed to work legally in the United States, their total contribution would soar by $40.2 billion per year to $136 per year. Most of the tax dollars paid by undocumented immigrants are collected through levies applied to their incomes, the report states. This includes broad income taxes as well as narrow payroll tax levied on workers' earnings that are dedicated to specified programs. It is well established that undocumented workers contribute to the saving of major social insurance programs through their tax contribution. In many respects, undocumented immigrants face a harsher tax code than the legal resident, the publication continued. They often pay taxes that are dedicated to funding programs from which they are barred from participating because of their immigration status. In addition, undocumented immigrants and the citizen members of their families are ineligible for the federal earned income tax credit. The study found that more than 1/3 of the taxes paid by undocumented immigrants fund government programs and services they are prohibited from use. In 2022, the most recent year for which data is available, they paid $25.7 billion in Social Security taxes, $6.4 billion in Medicare taxes, and $1.8 billion in unemployment insurance. Followers, it's time for followers of Jesus Christ to stand up and speak up and say, we are tired of the way this government is treating immigrants. This government, because we need immigrants to keep the United States economy up. Thank you for allowing me to speak.
Thank you. Our next public speaker this evening is Denzel Winter.
Good afternoon, City Council. I'm here today because I've taken a walk down 7th Street and also down East State Street. Over there at the theater that they were supposed to be fixing up, you look in that little corner there, there's bedrolls there. Homeless people are sleeping there because they have nowhere else to go. I think it's time for us as human beings to find out what we need to do to help these people. I remember one time when I was homeless over there at the Mission, and one of the things that didn't go good with me was the fact that if they would get smart with you. I remember one winter night, it was 20 degrees outside, and they told this young man, if you don't, you need to go sleep with the ducks. In other words, they put him out. He ended up freezing some of his hands, the fingers off, some of his toes off. And his family ended up suing them people. A lot of times, the homeless people don't go into them places like that in the wintertime. You know why they stay out there in the wintertime? Because they get tired of being talked down to. And it's really, really bad. You know, you're already thinking bad of yourself, and then these people come and even add more stuff to it. You know, and you know, there for a while, I try to figure out what happened when because at one time it was against, might as well say against the law to be out there panhandling, and all of a sudden you got all these people rushing cars and stuff. And the way they drive up and down East State and Jefferson, it's a wonder that they don't run over folks out there. You know, but we need to find out what we can do. We didn't close down churches that help these people when it's really cold out. Miss Carly used to give clothes out to people. They shut her down, which is not right. You know, we even have one mayor before you. They say, oh, we don't have a homeless problem. But all you had to do was go right down there to the old jail and see them sleeping by the police door. And the reason that they were sleeping there was the fact that they felt safe there.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. Our next public speaker this evening is Hannah Underhill.
Good evening. My name is Hannah. I'll be talking about ICE terror, ICE, police following their job description, and Rockford breaking the American with Disability Act, ADA. Rockford needs to work with organizations with organized communities against deportation, OCDAD, to take ICE to court for breaking the law, the due process law. ICE erased 12,000 people from ICE records. People have been purchasing ICE vests off Amazon and trafficking minors and elderly. Take ICE to the federal court for breaking due process law and terrorism by preventing access of food, water, and hygiene, leading to death and child abuse. If ICE is spotted in Rockford, Rockford police needs to ask if they have a warrant. If ICE has no warrant, they need to leave. Cases that need to go against ICE. Due process, removing humans from records from Alligator Alcatraz, concentration camps, and no warrants. Rockford police need to follow their job description, which is protecting life. Rockford police needs to follow ICE with sirens, megaphone announcements, and regular updates on their location. Police officers' duties and responsibilities is to protect life. Protecting life includes protecting life from the elements. When people are unhomed, life is not being protected. Not protecting people from the elements kills people and triggers the fight, flight, fawn, or freeze response for people in Rockford, witnessing people in dangerous and unprotected situations. Redirect the police to follow their job description of protecting life. Home people in Rockford. Rockford is breaking the American with Disabilities Act, ADA. The American Disability Act's ADA prohibits discrimination on the basis of disability in state and local government, public accommodations, and transportation. Rockford sidewalks are not accessible for people using wheelchair. This is breaking the American with Disabilities Act law. By not having accessible cities transportation. Follow the law. Hold banks accountable who own and rent out commercial zones for having accessible sidewalks. Make a schedule for Rockford to have accessible sidewalks before 11/25. Protect Rockford from sexual trafficking, terror, and charge ICE. Redirect the police to protect people from the elements by providing homes. Follow the American with Disabilities Act. Fix the sidewalks. Stop transportation discrimination. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next public speaker this evening is John Tack Brantley.
Good evening, Tom McNamara, all the persons, citizens of Rockford, Illinois, the name of the people that's watching. I want to thank the supervisor on School Street that's doing the construction. He asked me about my program and saying he'd been seeing me around doing different things with the kids, and he wound up giving me $300 just off the top of his pocket. And then the other day, I was at the grocery store getting ready to pay for my food, and then another Caucasian individual seen me and said, "I see you around town doing things with our kids," and he paid $120 for the food, so I didn't have to pay for it. But what I want to talk about is our Antichrist, Donald Trump. They thought he was playing when he said he was going to be a dictator. They put the flag half-mast for this one individual that was part of the founders that wrote Project 2025. He also was part of the founders of the Tea Party. We didn't put the flag half-mast for Dr. King or Malcolm X, but yet they put the flag half-mast for him. They thought he was playing when he was saying he was going to be a dictator. All five of his kids are DACA kids. Let's get back to right here in Rockford. I have a concern. I'm not mad or disappointed with how the Hispanics have took over Barber School. They got 98% Hispanic administrators, teachers. We had at the People's Who Care lawsuit, we had Bible School, Ellis, Lewis Lennon, and Reeser that came out of that. And the only school that profited from that, and they sat on the sideline, was the Hispanics. They get 10 credits towards their college grades. They have 27 kids that's never been absent from school. Their graduation rate is 98%. Their absentee and their suspension rate is at an all-time zero. That's a good thing, but what happened to Elder School, Lewis Lennon? I'm going to tell you what happened to them schools. Our own people. We won the lawsuit. We won the lawsuit in the Supreme Court in 1972, and our own bourgeoisie sat on the sideline, so we can't blame them. I'm highly disappointed, and I hope y'all watch it. Why are y'all threatening Apostle Brown about opening up, taking advantage of Rockford Memorial Hospital? L.A., California, New York, Philadelphia, Atlanta, any black that get $2 or $3 million, they embrace them for opening up a place. We don't own anything here. A barbershop, cutting hair, and braiding hair, and cooking, we learn that in every household. What's going to happen when ISIS was already here and they decide to target barber school, Lincoln Middle School, Constant Lane? And believe me, them parents going to rise up. Thank you for allowing me to speak. And I'll be back because ISIS is already.
Thank you. Thank you to all of our public speakers this evening. This evening, for our strategic planning session, we have two discussion items. First discussion item is about code enforcement, and that's going to be led by our legal department as well as our community and economic development department.
Good evening. Thanks for letting us present tonight. We have quite a bit of information for you, and we have representatives from Community and Economic Development and legal team here to talk about our code enforcement process. So to tell you what we're going to cover tonight, we're going to go over what we currently have as our goals for our code enforcement team and talk to you about the authority that we execute those items under or from. Jess will go through our process and give you some data to show what we've been doing in its year to date. So it's January through August of 2025. So you'll see numbers. Erin will go through the legal steps that are taken. If we have a service request that becomes a case that doesn't get resolved, then she'll talk to you about the code hearing process and when something goes to court. And then we'll come back with a few closing comments, some other promising practices that we've identified, and then repeat the goals again to just make sure that we've given you before and after a way that showing how we think through things. With that, I want to just say for our goals, we are compliance driven. We operate under certain statutes, and we try and make sure that people get notification, that they have time to try and comply. Compliance, again, is the goal. So we'd like to see the improvements happen, and we'd like people to learn what improvements they're supposed to be doing, right? So that is where we start with all of our processes. When we're going out day to day and setting up inspections, we do prioritize complaints that we get in. So that's service requests that come in through the portal, from phone calls, from emails, from texts, all the different things. We do prioritize complaints, and then we work on any proactive work if we can. We do try to get some cost recovery. We try and do what we can to make sure that we're following the correct processes so that if we do go out and mow or whatever, we are able to bill for that service. So we try and stay within the statutes to make sure that we can do that. And as we're looking at our systems, the systems and processes, the roles, the workloads, all that should be set up to help I guess like 80% of the problems should not be a nuanced situation, right? We shouldn't be evaluating every case. We should be able to run a system and address things pretty systematically and then leave the exceptionals or the nuances or those discussions for what truly needs to be thought through. So those are our goals when we're going through code enforcement. Angela's going to talk about this slide.
Thank you. So as a non-home rule municipality, our rights are limited to the authority that's explicitly contained in Illinois law or under the Illinois Constitution. So this slide provides just a few examples of the authority that we have under state law to regulate. And we have the authority to regulate weeds, refuse, garbage, and ashes, as well as inoperable vehicles.
Okay. Give you an idea of the team that works on code enforcement. Put a bit of a org chart up here. So I'm the Community Economic Development Director. We have our Construction and Development Services Manager, and then he has technically two different teams that make up the code enforcement team. So we have neighborhood standards. That side starts with the Senior Neighborhood Stabilization Officer, which is who you mostly know, Jesse Anderson here. That neighborhood standards is really focused on property outside of the building. It's not the building, it's everything else. So when Angela's mentioning weeds and sanitation and trash and those kinds of conditional issues, neighborhood is the outside, right? Property standards, that refers to anything on the building, on the external, or inside the building. That is a team, there's members of our building team that have property standards as part of their jobs. It made sense at a certain point in time to put a building inspector team, like they're looking at, code, but they could also be looking at certificates of occupancy, those kinds of things too, right? Our property standards is a little different, but that is what encompasses our full code enforcement team. But this chart there gives you the roles that are funded for code enforcement right now. And then legal also has two full-time attorneys in their legal department focused on code enforcement duties, and then other departments do assist us from time to time additionally. This is an update before we go into the process. Just wanted to let you know we did initiate a contract through your approval with a consultant to come and look at our current staffing, our current process, our numbers, the things that are our software systems. We do know that we've had some glitches in some of that. And so he began on August 26th. So far he's interviewed 25 of the Community and Economic Development staff to look at and hear from a variety of roles and variety of voices, what was going well, what's not, what they were experiencing in the field, what they were experiencing with the systems or with others in the department. He gathered information, so the first two standard operating procedure things that he's starting is to look at our condemnation process and to look at our vacant property process, but we anticipate doing that with every single one. This is just what he's had time for so far. What he has found in looking just the general sense in this is that we do really need to overhaul some of it. Rockford has progressed and advanced. We have a lot more happening on the building side of things. So we've had a lot of permits, a lot of those kinds of things happening. So we need to reassess what we're doing on some of our other systems, our neighborhood standards and our property standards, and really think about the way that we could lay out the team so that it's effective, efficient, all of those things. So looking at that, he realized or has recommended or said that our practices, software, and staffing are not fully aligned with where we need to be. So we began to look at the software. We had the starting of an RFP for that. He will bring expertise to that RFP. He's engaged with multiple communities and what they've used, so he's identified a potential 11 that we could send the RFP to and start to work with when we're ready. He reviewed our organizational chart and compared it to best practices from other municipalities, our size and other sizes, and then is looking to at our mission, like are we aligned the way that we want to be or for what we identify as our goals. And then we started some quick wins and then some prioritization of those goals. And we will start to also, we've done some engagement of the private sector, but we need to hear from the heavy users of the permit system or those things too, to make sure as we're redoing this, it meets the community's need also. So now I'm going to pass to Jess to go start through the process.
Good evening, everybody. So I just kind of want to touch on what Sarah said, kind of the difference between the neighborhood standards and the property standards and what different things that we look at. So neighborhood standards is definitely the sanitation, the garbage all over the place, the weeds, the fence and dumpster issues, vehicles and trailers and the inoperable vehicles that are not on the street is for police, and zoning and sign complaints. Property standards are the exterior of the building, like structural and roof and windows and gutters, issues with that, and the interior of the building, which would be the plumbing, mechanical, electrical, or hoarding situations. Okay. So I'm going to provide you guys a little bit of the service request data, and this is stuff that residents and you guys and people in the community have called in. So for neighborhood standards, we to date at the end of August have received 5,866 service requests. Of that, we have started and went out and identified out of those that 1,633 of them were violations at time of inspection and cases were started. 320 of them were duplicates, which means that we either already had somebody call in on it or we already had an open case. 1,584 of them were knock and talks. Knock and talks is when we were able to go out and actually have a conversation with the resident on site, and it was an easy fix for them to be able to correct it while we were there within a day. We have shifted to this starting at the beginning of the year, especially my team, the neighborhood standards, and we're seeing a lot of compliance and just educating people about our ordinances. A lot of people, you'd be surprised, don't know that they can't have a vehicle sitting in their front with expired plates. So sometimes it's just us having a conversation. It takes a little bit of time, but they're going to think about it in the future. 337 of them were referred to other departments, whether it be the fire department, our public works department, what else? Police. A lot of them are the vehicles on the street. And we went out and found that 1,992 of them, the violation was not present on time of inspection. For our property standards, 318 service requests were received. 242 inspections did show that there were violations and cases were started. 3 were duplicates. They talked to one individual. Referred to other department was 50, which most likely could have been over to us, Public Works, Police, or Fire. And 22 of them were unfounded at time of inspection. I wanted to include the breakdown of complaints so you guys can kind of see what the residents and you guys are all calling in about. So year to date, we've had 51 people call in about dumpsters. 288 are evictions, which is people's belongings that are out on the curb. 10 fences, 591 garbage complaints, 3,016 general exterior complaints, which ranges from garbage to a gutter being off. 519 vehicle complaints, 1,373 weeds complaints, and 18 zoning and sign complaints. Once we go out and once we receive a service request, we want to get out to the property within 48 business hours. That is our goal, to get out there. When we are out there, we'll usually categorize it in these 5 things. We either open a case, we refer it, we knock and talk, we unfound it, which means we went out there, there was nothing there for us to cite, or is a duplicate, and I kind of went over that in the previous slide. If we do go out there and we do see a visible case, we categorize it into 3 different types of cases within our department. We have a contractable case, which is something that I can contract somebody out if they do not comply with us to be able to pick up and abate our weeds and our sanitation and our trash. We have our non-contractable cases, which is something that we can't fix. We have to, if they don't comply with us, this is something that's going to go through our code hearing process. So that's like our fences, our trailers, our outdoor storage, anything worth of value. And then we have our property standards cases, which is our building issues. So this is our types and timeline of from the time we start a case, how we proceed with this. We get a lot of complaints that we aren't doing anything, but we have to do this timeline. So with neighborhood standards, when we set out a notice, we will give them 14 days to comply for our standard violation. That's for typically our sanitation, our non-contractable cases. For weeds, we do 5 days due to the mailing, so we can assure that it gets it. Or if it is a second, third, fourth, or fifth violation, they won't get another notice for that. Post for an emergency or eviction cleanup, we post for 24 hours. So we have to be able to give them notice prior to cleaning this up. Notice for our homeless encampments, we do post homeless encampments and allow them 48 hours to remove their belongings. With property standards, when they send out and they violation notice, their standard time is 45 days for compliance. At the time of our follow-up inspection, when that 14, 5, 24, 48 hours, we'll either pass it, which means we went out there, they listened, we're closing the case out, we're done with it. If we go out there and the violation is they're working on it, they had multiple things, and we see progress, we can extend it to be able to continue making that progress with them. If they fail it, we can send it out to our contractor if it's a contractable case. So once we send it to our contractor, they have 5 business days to complete the work. However, we send out one list. We don't send individual properties all day long. We send one list a week to our contractors for our weeds and sanitation, so we have to kind of figure in that time as well. Our non-contractable or property standards, if we go out, we don't see progress, the property owners aren't working with us, that's when we fail it, and it will start through the code hearing process. Some year-to-date on our cases. So Neighborhood Standards has started 6,643 cases this year. 789 of them were sanitation cases, and 311 of those 789 were sent to contract. That's actually a really good number. People are complying with us, and it's been down since last year. Our weeds cases we started this year was 3,879. That number is still growing because the grass is growing. We did send out 1,719 to contract for this year. We've had 1,975 non-contractable cases, and 86 of them were resolved, and that was either we were doing test cases or they were duplicates that went through the cracks. Property Standards has started 308 cases. So with total number and data on inspections, That includes our compliance inspections, our re-inspects, our contractor inspections, because we do go out and check the work of our contractors, our pre-hearing inspections, and our post-hearing inspections. Our Neighborhood Standards Department has done 10,470 inspections on properties this year, and our Property Standards has done 710.
Good evening, everyone. I'm going to take this opportunity to speak to you all about two avenues of enforcement that the City of Rockford currently uses. Now, that's code hearing and circuit court, and what's important to know is sometimes some properties require both avenues of enforcement. It really depends on the property owner's involvement and whether or not they're willing to come into compliance with our codes. Code hearing is an administrative process. So what that means for us is that it takes place in this room. There is a hearing officer, and that hearing officer can issue a findings decision and order and potentially find the owner liable for the violation that was cited. Circuit court is different because that's going to the actual courthouse, right? So that's where we file a case in the 17th Judicial Circuit. We have to serve summons, file the complaint. That is assigned to the civil division of the circuit court. There are two judges currently that are handling the cases that we bring from code enforcement. That's either Judge Barch or Judge Fabiano. And in circuit court, the difference is instead of that findings decision and order that is issued by a hearing officer, the court can issue their judgments, their orders, potentially give contempt orders, injunctive relief, etc. There's a little bit more force sometimes behind a circuit court case. What's important also to remember about the two different areas of enforcement is that code hearing process is just by statute, by its nature, a quicker process. So when we take a case through code hearing, it is supposed to be quicker. Circuit court takes a bit more time. So always adjust how you view a case depending on which route we're taking. And I'm going to touch on those little bit of nuances in the next two slides. And the last thing about, in general, code hearing and circuit court, what's very important is that all of our residents, all of our homeowners, our property owners are afforded due process. So we have to make sure we're giving them notice and giving them the ability to say, my property is not liable, right? I fixed it, or I am liable. What can we do to try to fix this problem? Can we go back to code hearing? Thank you. So the goals of code hearing, legal compliance, right? It's always trying to get to compliance. At a hearing process, at a code hearing, we're going to give an offer to resolve it, hopefully on the first appearance, to say you're liable, here's a fine. Hopefully that fine will induce the property owner to come into compliance. The other option, of course, is that the property owner could say, hey, I'm not liable, I want to go to hearing. So then it would get set for a hearing date. And what that means is here's the process. So to start a code hearing case, there has to be a violation notice and report mailed to the property owner. With that violation notice and report, which is what covers all the violations that we are citing at that time on that property, will be a summons. So the violation notice and report and the summons will be mailed to the property owner. There is a 30 to 40 date window between that mailing and when that first appearance in code hearing is. And then at that code hearing date, it could resolve potentially on that first date, or many times it gets set for another date for hearing. That's just currently how our process has been going forward. What's also important to remember is when it gets to code hearing, it's a 30 to 40 date kind of stall, and that gives the due process to our property owners. But it might have come in on a complaint, which means the city has been dealing with it for longer than 30 to 40 days, right? So before we even get to code hearing, there's probably been a bit of time that the property has been out of compliance, that our inspectors have been working with property owners, hoping to achieve compliance outside of a fine, right? The hearing process will begin, like I said, we'll present some evidence of a violation at the hearing itself. There's the right to subpoena. If the property is in fact in violation, the hearing officer will issue some sort of a fine upon the recommendation of the attorney handling the code hearing. The purpose, of course, is to hold the property owner responsible and accountable for the property, right? And hopefully, again, achieve that compliance. Staff will also follow up with inspections after the finding of liability. And if the property, unfortunately, still remains out of compliance, next steps will be addressed. Those next steps could be, not in all situations, but could be circuit court. So the focus, again, of circuit court is we're circling right back to that compliance. We are all about please fix your property. The process for circuit court is different. We have to file a complaint in circuit court. And then also summons needs to issue. The difference between summons in circuit court versus summons in code hearing is summons in circuit court. The process to serve that is in person. So we get to mail it in code hearing, but in circuit court, for the most part, we have to serve the person or the entity in person. So there might be sometimes a little bit of a struggle there at points. And the time frame for circuit court, if I filed the case today, my first court date I'll be given will be 3 months from now, 90 days. So that's not to say we may not be able to get into circuit court before those 90 days, but there is that delay before the first court appearance. So that's why when I first was talking to you all, there's the code hearing process, you're talking 30 to 40 days before your first date. Circuit court, potentially 90 days. The three main types of cases the city has been bringing to circuit court has been judgments on FDOs, orders to repair, and I'm sorry, judgments on FDOs means we're trying to get more enforcement on the findings, decisions, and orders that were given by the hearing officer. Orders to repair on properties that have remained out of compliance, so the court's telling them, you better fix your property, essentially. And then demolition cases where their structure is so unsafe and the cost of repair just doesn't, it outweighs the value of the property itself. So those are the three kinds of cases we're taking to circuit court. Thank you.
There are a couple other tools. That's our normal process. But a couple other tools that we have started working through recently that we see some good results from. One being the vacant and foreclosed property regulations and registry that we have. We have a before and after photo. We've been able to use this ordinance to get inspections on properties, get owners to either register the property or get some sort of plan in place. Most often, the ones that we've been in contact with, it has been to put them up for sale. We have identified so far 218 vacant properties to move onto this registry. We've sent letters to 36 of the properties. 15 came in and registered plans and registered them on the vacant registry, and 2 are like this one, have been sold, purchased, rehabbed, and then sold again to a homeowner. We have 2 more that will be coming online soon. It's a really promising and somewhat shorter process to get compliance. When I told you the 2.25 property standards inspectors that we had, we've only started on the vacant, so the 0.25 is what we've been able to assign to one of our property standards. But as we're realigning and looking at practices and the best way to use the team, we anticipate putting more into this practice because it has really shown some great results. Other tools that have been created, the rental registry, and when we relaunched it, we had landlords put in their tenant information. So it's mixed results, but theoretically it does give us, if there's trash, we can talk to the tenant and we don't end up in a bad conversation with the landlord or setting off more issues because of some disagreements. So it's a tool, it's getting a little better, it's got some promise to it, I'll say that. Also, through the rental registry, we are registering our short-term rentals, and you all approved regulations on those, and so we are finding those useful and having conversations with some properties that were in neighborhoods and having large parties and large parking problems and other things. Those regulations have been good to have in place and are helping us find some solutions to certain issues going on. And then we have had a long-standing committee called the Problem Properties Committee that we just renamed to Properties Solutions, because we are very forward-thinking. That's a multidisciplinary team. That's police, fire, building, zoning, legal. We come every other Wednesday. We have a list of properties, issues that are going on. Are we attacking this the right way? Is there a better way to come at the issues we're having here? Is there a way we could get to compliance working with each other? So we found it's been a good team, and it has produced some results also. So we are continuing to do that. So I'm going to put back up the slide that you've already seen, just to remind you. Now you've gone through the whole process, you've heard how we do things, you've heard our time frames. And just to remind you, overall in code enforcement, our goal is compliance. We're trying to work within the time frames that we need to according to the statutes. We're trying to get abatement and compliance whenever we can. That's our best route to ensure that if we have to step in, we have some way of getting some cost recovery, but compliance is a better way to to hopefully create in the future better property owners too. It's, again, we answer complaints first. That's just told you the lot comes in on service request. We enter those all in, and we try and get to those first. And then we start cases or move them through to a hearing in that if we need to. I already mentioned the cost recovery, and then to tell you again too, we're trying to develop our system so that it's like to overuse the word, but they're as systematic as possible, right? Like we're not developing a system that does the hardest thing for everything. We're developing a system that answers 80% of the need, and that then we look at the outliers when they're actually outliers too. And then Angela has one more note for you all.
Switching gears a little bit, I just wanted to clarify that loitering and panhandling are violations that are handled and enforced by the police department as opposed to code enforcement. But based on the trends that we've seen over the last 10 years, I just wanted to take a few moments of your time and give you a brief synopsis of that. And courts have found that panhandling is protected speech under the First Amendment. So we're trying to balance the need for public safety with the rights of individuals to conduct themselves and speech and have signs and so forth under the First Amendment. And federal courts recently have found that regulations restricting panhandling based on the content of the speech are unconstitutional. So the court will put other speech in the place of the panhandling speech. For instance, if I have a sign, need money for food, they'll put something else in there that's, a political message or so forth. And because it is based on the content, where if it was a clearly First Amendment speech, it would not apply to that ordinance or statute. The courts have found that it is a content-based restriction, and those content-based restrictions have to survive strict scrutiny, and they're presumptively invalid as a matter of course. So it's a very high bar to meet. You have to show that the ordinance is narrowly tailored to achieve a compelling governmental interest. And courts have found that protecting individuals from unwanted speech as the potential listeners of the speech is not a compelling state interest. So the trend in the last few years has been to enforce violations based on the conduct. For instance, aggressive panhandling, disorderly conduct, assault, those types of violations, interfering with traffic in the roadway, pedestrians in the roadway, those types of things. So we're seeing a movement towards those types of regulations as opposed to panhandling specific regulations. So I just wanted to take a moment of your time to brief you on that issue, and now we'd be happy to answer any questions that you may have on our presentation.
So thank you so much for that presentation. Council, questions? Alderman Beach.
Thank you, Your Honor, and thank you for your presentation. I'd like to just ask the one question on numbers. Back on page 10 and 14, are they separate numbers or are they part of the same numbers? We had service requests of 5866 and violations of 6643.
Those are separate numbers.
Separate numbers.
Yes. So service requests are what came in, and the ones on page 14 are actual cases we started. So we had started more than what came in.
Started more.
More cases,
okay.
Correct.
All right, thank you. And then one last question to the attorney.
You have a couple
legal
of them
for them? Excuse me?
You have two of them up here.
Either one is fine. Is speed in the middle of the street considered being on the sidewalk? I mean, they have to walk in the street to get to the middle of the street, the island, and they're often stepping off of the island into either lane of the traffic to collect money. That's all legal?
So some of the cases cited on this slide were related to, so the Oklahoma City case in 2020, the Federal Appeals Court struck down a ban on panhandling on the street medians, noting that the city failed to demonstrate a clear safety problem caused by pedestrians in those areas. So if we did want to regulate or prohibit panhandling or other speech from taking place on areas of the median, we would have to demonstrate that it poses a safety risk.
Well, thank you.
You're welcome.
Doesn't make a lot of sense because you got thousands of cars coming down East State or Alpine, one of the other majors, and people are out in the street.
And keep in mind, Alderman Beach, that may be a separate violation under the traffic code, but the state's attorney's office would prosecute those violations and authorize charges or, speak to the officers about enforcement.
Thank you, sir.
Alderwoman Meeks.
Thank you so much. For one of the questions was related to things that we could do or the limitations of things that we can do without being a home rule community. What what are some of the things we could do if we were a home rule community?
So we would have more flexibility, and currently we either have to there has to be explicit regulation of those subject matters that explicitly in the state law, or we have to use our nuisance authority. And so if we were a non-home rule community, we would have more flexibility and a wider range of tools at our disposal to adopt and enforce other regulations. So we could broaden the scope and not just focus on weeds and garbage and inoperable vehicles.
Is there any way you can expand on that to kind of give me an example of something specific and tangent that we could do with home rule? I'm having a hard time kind of understanding.
One example may be, home rule communities could find that, they could regulate the type of landscaping or plantings or things like that if there was an adoption of such an ordinance. So they just have more flexibility in making those regulations. They're not confined to only the nuisance authority or those regulations explicitly outlined in state law.
So like paint colors, things like that.
Correct.
You would go as far as to limiting those things if you had home rule?
They could. And I can explore some home rule communities, Alderwoman Meeks, and see if I can provide you more examples of regulations that they've adopted.
Thank you so much. And I had another question, and I don't know if this is to the finance director, but it's related to the kind of the revenue that we get from fines. Is that in any way offsetting kind of the costs that we contribute to paying for contractors and the work that we put in, the staff that we send out to do things? Is that offsetting what we're getting from fines, and can we get an idea of what that revenue looks like from fines?
Yes, so any fine revenue generated from the code enforcement activities comes back into the general fund, which is where our code enforcement activities are paid from. Those revenues would offset any operating costs for code enforcement. I don't have revenue numbers off the top of my head, but we can certainly provide that to you.
Okay. And last question, sorry.
You're good.
There was a mention after the consultant-led overhaul. I was a little. I just want to say this first. I like the approach that you're taking, where you're knocking on the doors. I don't know if that is the same approach that's being taken from the property standard side, but I do feel like that could be helpful. I'm assuming that they deal with more businesses, homes that are in disrepair, bigger apartment complexes that aren't being maintained. Can I assume that that's what property standards does?
Correct, right? It's all the buildings. So there's commercial, residential, it's all the different sized ones. And they, depending on the size, it can take a bit longer, but something like take Versailles, that's a property that starts as a property standards case, right? Like that's multiple units and a whole different kind of development, and it's a consistent property standards person going there and working through the issues. And we had to do a case and instill a fine, and now he's following up on the fine and we keep on compliance. So it's one property, but over and over to try and get buildings just a little more difficult. When you're dealing with someone's property versus a lawn, and I think Jess mentioned, like when they go into neighborhood standards, when you have contractable or non-contractable, you're talking about, we moved to non-contractable when items have value. People have rights on their property, and we can't just do stuff to them, right? So a property standards case, even when it's a home, we can't just enter because we can't observe it from the right of way, right? There's rules and things about their property, so it takes us a little bit longer to do that and to work through some of that. We do feel that there's more opportunities and ways that we could be working through that, and that's part of going back to what you said, the contractor and the overhaul, like what we could be doing with some of those building inspectors that are out on different properties, and how we could be using them a little better to be following up on a few more property standards cases. But again, we're assessing some of that mix of how they're getting assigned inspections and that.
And did it say that software would contribute to this? Is this the kind of expectation that comes out of it, is that there will be a new software that will help with efficiencies for your organization? Yeah,
like a better way of scheduling inspections, right? So like, I'll give you for instance, like I mentioned, our building team has the building inspectors and the property standards because there's some ebb and flow on it. And what that looks like is we have someone dedicated to plumbing inspections, right? But one of our property standards inspectors is also a licensed plumber, because sometimes we have too many plumbing. And state laws, you have to have a licensed plumber do those inspections. So if we have too many and we need to send a second person out, it's good to have that cross-training, right? And create that. So that's the ebb and flow. Like if we could, with a software system and how we're keeping track of things, we think we could plan routes better, we can plan a day better, we can think through these inspections and how they're getting assigned and make sure we're just efficiently sending people out so that this cross-training works for us, and that we're able to use people in a couple different ways if they've got those skill sets. And that we're not like out on one and then we get a call and it's taking us different ways, that a software system can help plan that out.
And do you feel that the system that we have right now is offering, I really want to focus on the businesses right now and the permitting process from when a business wants to open to whatever that process is. Do you feel like what we have in place right now is working for our local businesses in a sufficient time frame to get businesses open and eliminate opening with problems, or do you feel like this is some of the work that this consultant will be doing to make those processes more efficient?
It's definitely some of the work that he's going to be doing, because if I'm really honest, we actually hear all different comments from the public. I've interviewed some high users of permits, like plumbing companies and that, and they're like, it's great. We get it done. It's super fast. You're way faster than other cities. Then we get to some of the bigger permit people, and they think, our plan review system, we actually are faster than a lot of municipalities. We have a 10-day workaround, requirement in that. So there's a lot of good in how we've set up our systems, but there are some issues, right? There's some differences in what the city of Rockford does versus McChesney and Loves Park, so there's confusion on that. And then making sure that we're doing that consistently. And our system is, I believe Todd Hughes' word is malleable, but that means we have a system where we can get an ordinance from you all and we can work on that system, but you have to be paying attention to it all the time. It's not a canned system, right? So we just have to watch for discrepancies, and so there's some people in the community have maybe hit a couple of those spots where there was a breakdown, and when we found it, we've worked on it and done what we can, but our system, newer systems don't have to have necessarily as much of that moment, or that's at least what we want to test out. So the consultant's finding the places where that's happening, and then we'll be working with IT and others to think the best way to make sure that we don't have those, because those moments are super irritating. If you're the one that got stuck and everyone else is fine, it feels even worse, right?
And I just want to, I'm done, but I just want to say thank you to this entire team. I feel like whenever I pick up the phone and I make a call about something, you in particular are on it, Jesse, and I appreciate you. I appreciate you, Sarah, so much, and this whole team. I think you all do a great job. I know that there's a lot of education that needs to take place in this community with regards to how timely things can be when we're dealing with private property and, things like that, but I think that you all handle yourselves very well. You do exemplary throughout the year, not just in the summer when you have extra interns, but throughout the year, and I appreciate everything you do. Thank you.
Thank you. Alderman Bell? No. Oh. Alderwoman Hoffman?
Thank you, Mayor. I just want to say what a wonderful job they've done, and because of them, I have some very bad landlords who have decided that Rolling Green is not where they want to do business anymore, and they've sold their property. And if you look at the last census, Rolling Green actually grew, and a lot of that is because we got rid of the bad landlords, and a lot of the good landlords have thanked me. And if you drive down Harrison, you will see a lot of work that's been done on properties that were starting to slide, but they got the message from the other landlords, and it really looks nice. All of those apartments along there, and we didn't have to go to them. They just found out on their own through the word that was being passed out. But because of your work, it has lifted our whole neighborhood. And I think you all know that my neighborhood is well trained in how to get through. And we were really proud. We thought we had the most reports, but I understand that the alderman of the 13th Ward has surpassed us in reports to code. At one time. Yeah, at any rate, we were talking about it. I was proud. Yeah, I was proud when we had 250, and then I understood he got like around 500 or so. But at any rate, we're still hanging in there, and I really appreciate how you've lifted our whole neighborhood. And I've had the good landlords thank me for bringing up their property values with your work, so thank you.
Thank you. Alderwoman Prunty?
Thank you so much. Thank you all for the work that you do. And I just have a few questions just to help clarify some things for me. You mentioned that at the beginning you talked about prioritization. How are things prioritized? How do you prioritize what gets done? You mentioned it, so how is it?
Sure. Yeah, so again, like I said, the service requests, we're using that term to mean the things that come in through the portal that someone calls in, emails in, you all are on those lists too, right? Like whatever way it comes in, we term it a service request. Jess's team, I would say loosely, and then I can let her describe it a little bit more, right? But she has 4 stabilization officers. They usually have an area of the city. So when they come in the morning, from those service requests, they're given what they're doing that day. And then when they're out on those service requests that they're assigned, they look around the area they're in. So that's to Alderman Beach's point, right? There's the service request, but there might be more cases started because while we're at a request, we try and look around, right? So they're more geographical. We'll send them to, if things come in during the day, Jess will be in touch with them and send them more areas. If we get a call about something happening that we need to address more quickly, we'll do that. Jess and Vic, so that's your senior neighborhood stabilization officer and then the neighborhood stabilization officer. So they take more of when we're sent photos or like maybe it's from different departments, from you all, they maybe prioritize those kinds of requests and follow up more on that. If they can assign it out, they know someone's going to be in that area, they will do that. And then depending on what they see, if it's something that was called in that really can just wait the 48 hours, they'll put it within their inspector's work item lists or their next day list. If it's something that has to be addressed right away, or sometimes, honestly, if there's events that are happening and we need to make sure that like a space next to that event allows for whatever the event was going to have, parking, like whatever those things, right? They triage based on different things that come up. So that's really Jess and Vic's job to do.
Do you envision at some point, at least when after the consultant and we start looking at software or whatever we purchase to help streamline this, do you envision incorporating artificial intelligence?
I don't know. What we do envision is a system that works on a phone or a device. Right now, our system, they take pictures in the field and they come back and finish the report. Or they take or the best case scenario, they take pictures and then work on a laptop in the car. There are plenty of systems that it would be an app on their phone, so while on site, they take pictures, type in what's happening, right? It's right away. Where AI might fill in, right? Like if we were able to create standard notes, standard ways of noting violations when you're on site. So you take a picture and then like it's this kind of violation. Maybe, I'm not sure. What's really important when especially for in property that we've been allowed to go and do inside, but really in all our inspections is that we are taking a picture and then noting why we took that picture and what the violation is. And as much as some of that's standard, some of it's not. And it's just really important that the inspector, the witness of record, should this have to go to Aaron down the road, right, is correctly identifying what they saw in that picture.
I don't know if it's because I'm in my 50s or whatever. I don't know that I'd trust AI yet to just do that for us. That maybe says something about me. I don't know.
Thank you. And thank you for mentioning inspection. So what could that look like? I mean, are you aerial viewing? Are you in your car? I know you don't walk on property, but even the ones when you do the building inspection, how does that look?
So when I'm describing it, it's from the inspector's viewpoint, from right of way, if that's what we're allowed, or on property, if we've created a legal pathway onto property or into property. The inspector knowing the code, knowing what what we need done in whatever they're citing, and correctly getting a picture and correctly getting it documented so that as we follow steps, we're good. There could be aerial ways of doing things. A couple of our departments do have drones. We haven't really done that for roofs or other things yet at this time. We'd like to get our on-ground systems in a really good place because, again, it's just a different expertise, right? When flying a drone and then making sure you're noting the correct things and you know how you're taking the pictures and you're lining up the legal record with the visual. Maybe we'd get there, but it honestly just take right now a good app with photos and quickly getting things in to a legal record on site.
Is the 30 to 40 day process, is that statute or is that practice?
That's by statute. That's by ordinance, yes.
Okay. And then when it goes to the higher ups, where you're going to either this process or you're going to court, I'm looking at, could you tell me just from the numbers that you gave, I'm sorry, I could be pointing to any one of these screens. Can you tell me again, like how often we prevail? How often are we getting the people who we've had to take it this far? How often are we getting them into compliance? Are we winning?
So are you talking about code hearing?
Yes, code
particularly?
As well as when we take them to beyond what happens in here, but we take them to the next place.
Okay, I'm not sure we brought those numbers with us, but we could send that out.
Okay, and then the repeaters. Are you working on something other than, year after year we have repeaters? Is part of the process with this consultant is to work on how to best address the repeaters?
So he's really more focused on how our current staffing structures, systems, and things are going and where we could create some better pathways to how we've been operating. It is something we could look at. It might be something that we'd have to bring a recommendation to the administration and then maybe eventually to you all. One thing that we have done on our repeaters, like Jess mentioned, if it's contractable, the first time they get notice and time to take care of the problem, but the second time we cite you for weeds, we just mow, right? The second time we cite you for trash, we just pick it up and we bill you for those, right? So we do have some pathway towards working a little differently with repeaters on things, but if we would have to put together recommendations to do that more often, I think. I don't think we have anything else.
And based upon, thank you for the, let's see, a 12th Ward Alderwoman, thank you. Her response as it relates to the money and the cost. Based upon what you're seeing so far, are we losing more, or are we coming out even, or?
Yeah, I think we'd have to probably wait. I don't want to weigh in on that because when we're budgeting and keeping track of staffing from our perspective, right, we're really thinking on the cost expense wise, because general fund is general fund. Mm-hmm. So I would give Carrie some time to look at that.
I think there's been history at different points. It depends. Again, there's an ebb and flow of the types of inspections and what we can collect. So it's been different at different times. So I think it's really important that Carrie probably just looks into that and we send that out to you rather than I guess.
Okay.
At it.
Thank you.
Sure.
Alderwoman Wilkins.
Thank you, Your Honor. Thank you for the presentation and also answering questions for me before the presentation. But I have one or two more. One is the SWOT analysis able to be sent to us to see what was collected from that? Like, it doesn't have to be pretty. Okay, thank you.
We can do that.
And then it was mentioned a couple times cases that were started. Of those cases that have been started, do you know how many have went past that 90-day mark? I think that was like the highest number that I heard what it can take for some things to start. Like, of those, how many have gone past those 3 months?
Okay, so that would be cases that the 90-day would be through court. So do you want to know like how many, I'm trying to think of how to, like just the ones that went to court and took longer, or?
Yeah, or do you have numbers on ones that are still open that have surpassed the amount of time that, is normally allotted for these types of things? I'm just trying to get a feel for, like they said, how the process works once it leaves here and goes to that next process.
Sure, I think that's something, Circuit Court?
So there's no real timeline to say how long a circuit court case could take. The 90-day time frame, what I was giving was when I first filed a complaint in circuit court, the first court appearance given is that 90-day case management conference, right? That's just your first appearance. But you could potentially motion your case in sooner for other reasons, okay? It's going to be determining on the facts, if we're getting service, if we need to issue another summons, those kinds of things, the whole initial legal process initially. Now, demolition cases are supposed to be expedited. So those cases are supposed to be quicker. But outside of those kind of unsafe condition cases, they could take quite some time to get accomplished. I know that we had filed a case on a big residential structure on State Street, I believe at the end of last year, and that's still pending. It just takes time to go through circuit court.
Can I just add really quick, maybe to address some of what you're trying to get at with some of these questions too is I anticipate once the consultant is further in and once we've got some process realignment recommendations and things that we will be doing, that we'll have him come to like an informational session at a committee meeting and just give you an update. One of the things that he actually, because he used to work here, is pretty familiar with Hanson. So some of our time frames on tracking, like from case to this, like if we can get some numbers down, that is one of the things we're going to try and work with him on, is to see, that also helps us with process improvement, to see where we're spending more time than maybe we need to be in that. So maybe I'll be able to give you some time frames when we're back with him.
Alderman Thunberg.
Thank you, Mayor. I'd like to thank you all for everything you've done and helped me in the past. Jess, I feel like sometimes I've had you on speed dial. With the online portal, just curious, I know that us aldermen get it on Sunday nights or early evening, late afternoon, the online portal updates within each ward or within our respective wards. Have you seen a noticeable increase in citizens using that online portal?
I actually have in the last few months. It's the uptake in requests coming in. Even neighborhood and ward groups we go to, we're really pushing that online.
Good. Yeah, I've noticed as well, and I was just, I guess if other constituent or other aldermen have seen that as well, and that does help alleviate some of our, burden of work and such. So anyways, so another thing is, I know I've had some constituents that have done the online portal and they've been a little bit confused, and Jess, I know we talked about this, and I don't know if there's a way to work with the software company or such, but they will get a response saying it's been resolved, and it's not. And so then I get the call or email, and
So that was, what, a month or two ago when we have some of that was on our end. There was a glitch in it that we have since fixed. And some of that is just me reminding how to resolve. Sometimes some of those were our weeds complaints, and again, I have 5 interns running my weeds program, so it's just getting them into how to do the process the correct way.
great.
So
Thanks.
we're on the right path now.
Thank you. I know that we spoke at some point in time, and probably, it'd probably be 2 years ago, about aldermen having access to the rental registry. There are times where I do get inquiries on if a property is in fact even on the rental registry. There are times where I would like to reach out to the landlord personally, and I have to go through you to get the number, and if we could, as aldermen, have access to that information that would give us whether a property is in fact on the rental registry, and number 2, the owner of the property contact information if we care to reach out to them directly.
So we can always look up if it's on the registry for you, and maybe legal can let you know if we're allowed to just share the registry with you.
We'll look into that and provide you with an update.
Okay. I mean, ideally, yeah, it would just be one less step that we'd have to go through if we had direct access to that. And I would imagine it wouldn't be abused, nor could we give that information out to the public. Last is that just based on my aptitude of math, the approximately 6,000 inquiries have come in to you this year already, and we're almost through September, obviously. So we're pushing about 700 a month coming into you. And so I guess where I'd like to go on that is, could we see about the possibility of getting you 2 more people within your department? Would that help?
Would you like a Christmas present?
Yes.
Right. Yeah.
Because
so I'm going to give you.
So, frankly, that's quite a bit, and there have been times, and I appreciate all you do, but I know there's been a couple times where I've rolled the dice, wondering if it's going to get taken care of, and knowing that it's not because of your lack of diligence. Frankly, I think it's due to being short-staffed. I know departments throughout the city are short-staffed, but the complaints we get from constituents are endless when it comes to neighborhood standards. And there are times where people in your office are going to be on vacation, they're going to be on sick time, they're going to have family situations, and that even creates more of a short-staffed in your, what I believe, already short-staffed department. So I guess you don't have to answer it, but I would like to see 2 more people in your department to address our neighborhood standards issues of almost 700 or so a month. So thank you.
Should I? I do want to say something.
Okay.
So first of all, I would say thank you for recognizing just like how this, we appreciate that you appreciate us, because we know you all are taking a lot of calls, and you all have had to be patient at different times on that. And it's a large city, and there's a lot of things going on, and it's been a lot of rain this year, which has been super fun for growth and that. So you all have also put up and had to work with us a lot too. So we do really appreciate that we're working together on this. I hear you. I think we've heard you in the budgeting process. We've heard all of those kinds of complaints. And I do appreciate you saying, like, every department is trying to think through what they prioritize and how they staff everything. So that's, you know, of course, why I have to refer to, like, in the budget process, we're going to have to look at the whole city, right? But I would also say it's part of the consultant, and I am not just trying to put things on. We do want to make sure that if we're hiring, it's because all of our staff are operating in roles that are really bringing value to the goals we've set, to the environment we want to have for property improvement and development in Rockford with community and economic development, right? All of our 4 divisions, we're really trying to serve property needs, business needs, and community needs. And we're just at one of those times. It's a really good time right now to think about Rockford advancing forward even more, keeping up this momentum we've got. We've got to be positioning our staff correctly. And adding means we're really sure that the current staff is doing what it needs to and needs the additional help. So all I'm asking for is, again, thank you for the appreciation, but give the larger, you see here, like all of us, time to really make sure that we're doing right as a full department. And then for sure, if we are and we need more, I will be back.
Mayor.
Yeah, there you go.
Yes, and as you work through that, please keep us up to date. And if in fact you do find yourself short, please let us know.
Okay.
Thank you.
Alderwoman Prunty.
Thank you for a second chance. I just have a question as it relates to our consultant and some of the practices that we're seeing, or some of the things that we're looking at. Some of us have areas in our ward that are not a part of the city. They are in the county. And I'm just kind of wondering, but yet our constituents are impacted by those things that are taking place in the county. So,
the couch.
Yes, the couch. So I guess one of the things that I'm asking is there an effort in this process to share more information with the county, and then to even share best practices with them? And maybe I'm even about to ask is, what is our relationship like? Because that couch did sit there for more than 2 years. Sorry, you don't have to answer the relationship one, but don't answer that one, as a matter of fact.
Yeah, it's probably better. Yeah, we're available if the county wants to talk over things, but we have a large body of work to do in the city limits, and we'll focus on that. Alderman Zelgado, when he was a county commissioner, tried to bridge that. That's actually how Jess and I met him, is he was trying to have us work with the county more. And you see how that worked out.
Awesome. All right. Alderman Salgado, we still also, by the way, have one more presentation this evening. We're inching closer to 2 hours on this one.
To spend and kind of analyze some of the stuff that's going on. Got a couple questions. The first one, you mentioned about educating our citizens on some of the stuff that's going on. I was wondering if you guys could go back to your statistics on the stuff that, like, for example, cars being parked or without registered, some may not know that, right? And so those learning opportunities where you guys can put like a list, send them to our alderman, alderwoman, So when we do presentations, you know, say, hey, look, these are the top ones that y'all need to be cognizant of, you know, be acknowledged. So it's hoping that as a recommendation, if you guys could do that, send them my way. I definitely would, you know, disseminate that information, because I get constant phone calls for everything, and I'm trying to figure out, you know, does this apply? Does this doesn't apply? So, that would be one recommendation, if you don't mind, to take back with the team, to kind of put a list of educational pieces for citizens, and for especially for aldermen too and alderwomen that may not know the regulations and our codes that could exist out there, right? And then the question along that that I have is, do you guys look at year over year to look at the number of calls, cases, whatever, versus last year, and kind of do that in analysis? We're right in the ballpark of where typically we see the complaints. Like, for example, during summer, right? Like you say, oh, maybe it was a heavier rain, you know, maybe it was more violations when it comes to weeds. So where I'm going with this is, so if you know that you can see the trends that are going forward, right? You can anticipate to say, maybe we need to subcontract more. We need to, you know, like fences, we do them internally. You see that there's an uptick or whatever because there's ordinance change or whatever the case may be. So now our staff is focusing more on that, and how do you shift your resources? So I'm asking if you guys look at that. I'm sure you guys do, because you could look at what's in the pipeline, you know, and disseminate, hey, you go over here, you go over there, whatever the case may be. But those are one of the things that I'd like to see, you know, if you guys can do over year analysis, because then it makes it a lot easier for us to say, yeah, we need to subcontract that out, instead of, you know, the inspectors or whatever doing that kind of stuff that could potentially be subcontracted off from that perspective. So that's my question. Do you guys do over year in comparison to see there's an uptick, there's not an uptick? And it could be that we're getting our citizens more educated, right, to put it in the system, to, you know, and so you're going to see that jump, right? And so just wanted to see your thoughts on that.
Yeah, both really good suggestions. And so I'm just, to be honest, and because of time, but just stepping into the leadership role, I haven't seen the year to year. We really concentrated on this year and getting out some systematic things to that consultant, right, for evaluation. But that is absolutely a way we want to think moving forward. We need our software to support that, so that we're running reports regularly. That'll be part of what we're looking at too. But yeah, it's a really great way to look at it, and definitely something we'll carry forward.
All right. And then the next question I have is regarding like garbage. So I know that some folks that are in violation, usually you send them a note and a bill like, hey, what about those certain things where it's in an alley, there's like a mattress or couches, someone just decides, you know what, I'm going to drop it there. Where does that money come from? And do we, you know, what's that budget look like? Because I feel like I call it in all the time, and I kind of feel bad. I'm like, who's picking up the tab here? Is the city? Is it coming out of our fund? You know, and so I'd like to understand, because, you know, I have individuals that are always calling me like, hey, there's a mattress on this alley or this right away, you know, and stuff like that. So I'd just like to ask that question, because I'm not sure. So
I can't tell if Jess, do you want to answer? You want me to answer? Oh, okay. So, yes. No, I was kidding. Yeah, we try and cite the property owner whenever we possibly can. And but like she said, sometimes it's not clear, and so we just have to post. And sometimes, and oftentimes, I would say, a mattress comes with some sort of sanitation issue. It's not just as easy as trash, right? And sanitation, we need to do faster. There's health risks and other things that are happening there. So we definitely post. And then, yes, the city is footing the bill for that contract to clean up. As much as we can, we then bill the property owner, or send what we can, do what we can to accumulate them, maybe place a lien if we get to that point. We try and do some cost recovery, and we try and get that back. But it depends. It depends on where it is, because you're right, there's a lot of dumping. It's hard to track sometimes.
And then my last one, if I may. Real quick, abandoned homes and the process. When you see like a home that, you know, is just sitting there and there's no activity going in and out, maybe they've taken out the services. It could be condemned potentially. What's the process with that? Can the city do something about? Because I always get calls from citizens. Hey, they're going in there, they're breaking in. They get boarded up. What is the process? Or I'm not asking for like a complete, like, give me 30 process, whatever. But if there's somewhere where I can get access to that, because I'm having to explain to my citizens, like, hey, we put it in the system, it's being worked on, and they're very impatient. They're like, well, how long is it going to take? Is it going to take a month, 2 weeks? And it's like, no, there's a complete process, that we legally, by state law, we have to do and post this and all this other stuff to the landlord, so forth, until we get a response, and then potentially goes to the land bank, trustee, whatever. So just if there is something out there, I'd be great if you could share that information, because I've been getting a lot of calls, and the 11th Ward has a few properties, out there, and it's constant, nonstop, and it's just trying to get to the point where how do we push that? And from a home rule perspective, there's some things we could do, but we got to work with what we got, right? And so just trying to figure out, educate the citizens, like, hey, this is our process, and this is how we can actually speed some of the process up or not. So just if you could share that, it doesn't have to be here, but it's one of those things that I truly...
Yeah, no problem. We'll send out the vacant process and how it's working right now. It's not currently in the system that we can build out notifications for you on. It's not in the portal right now where you could track a case on it. But again, because it was new, we'll eventually get these merged. But I'll send you out just so you know what to do for now.
Thank you, Alderman Bell.
Yep, so sorry. Two things, and we can talk off the record more about it, maybe in a meeting, but I would love to work on expanding our internship program, as well as getting more minority-owned businesses on contract to address some of these issues, like the tall grass and weeds. I have had several conversations with residents who actually own their own small business, 1 or 2 guys, 3 guys, who are just go around the community and say, hey, do you know the owner of this home? I'd love to help them cut this grass, right? Vacant property, and things like that. So just want to put that on the record, and would love to have a conversation about expanding those two things. And before you go, I know everyone has said it, but for my short time on council now, I just want to say thank you for all that you guys do. Really, really hard work. So appreciate it.
Thank you.
Yep.
Thank you so much for all the work that you do for tonight's presentation. Really appreciate it. Oh.
Let's not wrap this up
I couldn't believe
just
that there
yet.
was more questions, but now we have Alderman Bonnie.
Oh.
Only because there's only a couple of us who haven't bothered to speak. And why not drag it on a little longer?
Please do.
First of all, yeah,
They actually work here every day between 8 and 5, and anyone can reach out.
So in terms of thank yous, I specifically want to thank Attorney Hannigan, who has added 2 staff specifically to help out in this area, and the at least 2 or 3 times mentioned Versailles Apartments has been it's been a arduous path, but it's slow but sure getting to some kind of goals. And the people who live in the Versailles Apartments are, some have left, some have voted with their feet and left, but those who are there and a few who come to each of the hearings are thankful that we're doing what we're trying to do and hold that particular landlord accountable. From a question standpoint, I'm wondering, between the various things that were asked and said about our deadline process, I think the information that's presented tonight shows that most of what comes in does get resolved and gets corrected, but and just to go to Alderman Thunberg's point, the frustration, I think, is with how long it takes. I think sometimes that's because people let a situation, by the time they contact staff or go to the portal or call their alderman, it's been brewing for weeks and weeks, if not months, and they've already lost their patience before they even report it. But is there, between restrictions as a non-home rule community and what state law, is there any room to reduce any of those timeframes, as we did a few years back when we changed our process so that you don't have to send repeat notifications to repeat offenders for weeds and for garbage? Is there any way that we can look at narrowing down any of those?
That's something that we plan to explore, and through the consultants' work as well as collaboration with the community and economic development team and the legal department team, to explore what options we have, and then if we have some, we'll bring those back before council to weigh in on those options.
Okay, and then also regarding home rule, just again an explanation for how is it different when the example you cited in response to Alderman Meek's question, how is it that we can have some design standards for commercial properties, like landmark style signs requiring that, or that we can have people, as a part of the historic preservation process, have to come to the Preservation Commission to seek to make exterior changes to their properties, but there's things we can't do.
Sure.
I don't know that I quite understand that.
So in terms of the Historic Preservation Commission and our zoning Board of Appeals and zoning regulations, those are all adopted pursuant to state law that authorizes us to have those regulations. So that's how we can do it, is that the state statute allows municipalities to develop those commissions and committees and boards and so forth. So because of that, we can, but we don't have any flexibility in going beyond what the state law allows us to do.
And so the void there is mostly regarding residential property standards that we might want to be more specific about and we can't?
Correct.
Okay.
Yes.
And then last, just I guess a question, or an observation. It's interesting to note that even though the 3rd Ward has the only full-time alderman, that the majority of complaints are coming out of the 8th and the 13th Ward. So I don't know if we shouldn't reconsider this full-time alderman position. Yeah, okay. Thank you.
Thank you. Again, thank you so much for the work that you do and for tonight's presentation. Appreciate all of you.
Thank you.
Next, we are fortunate to have a presentation on funds and fund limitations. Very exciting topic this evening. We have Director Haggerty.
I know everyone's really energized for some accounting discussion, so I'll keep it succinct. Yes. Okay, so I will, in anticipation of the budget process beginning here shortly, for your involvement, we've been working on it behind the scenes for several months already. We wanted to take a moment to just have a brief conversation about our accounting structure, the types of funds we have, and the limitations on how we can and cannot use those funds, just so that you all have a clear picture of what all options are available as we move into this budget process. Am I driving? There are 3 types of funds in governmental accounting. We have governmental funds. Those account for most core governmental activities. They focus on current resources to fund current operations. These include the general fund, special revenue funds, capital project funds, and debt service funds. The second type is proprietary funds. So these account for business type activities where the government charges for services. Accounting in proprietary funds is similar to business accounting or accrual-based accounting where assets are depreciated. Proprietary funds include enterprise funds like utilities and internal service funds. And then finally, we have fiduciary funds, which hold resources in trust for other parties. We act as trustee or custodian. Those include, for us, pension funds. So the general fund, which is generally the main focus of conversation in our budget process, is the city's main operating fund. The major revenue sources that contribute to the general fund are property taxes, sales taxes, income taxes, permits, fees, and fines. And the general fund funds police, fire, public works, admin and engineering, streets, traffic, construction services, economic development, RMTD, and all of our support departments. So, really the core services that we provide as a municipality come from the general fund. Special revenue funds are governmental funds established for specific purposes, either by council action, by state law, or by other legal restriction. So some of the main types we have are TIF funds. Revenue is property tax increment and supports TIF eligible expenses. Health and Human Services, revenue is state and federal grant funds. Activities as defined by the grant, same with CDBG and home funds. Our CAP and MFT funds, funded by sales tax, motor fuel taxes, or grant funds, specifically for the construction of fixed assets, and our internal staff costs associated with designing, supervising, and planning that work. Debt service, funded from transfers from other funds to make debt service payments. Redevelopment and tourism funds, so obviously one we talk about a lot here, the revenue is hotel motel, taxes, food and beverage, and packaged liquor tax. Just to point out, we have tourism and then we have redevelopment hotel motel tax. So our total tax is 6%. 5% of that is under a tourism promotion law at the state level that has to be used as a non-home rule community for tourism promotion. And from that 5% tourism tax, we fund Go Rockford's operating agreement. Additionally, we have a 1% hotel motel tax that goes to the redevelopment fund. In addition, we have the 1% food and beverage and packaged liquor tax. Those funds support RAVE operating and capital, Go Rockford operating and capital, economic development efforts, and tourism promotion. The FPC, or Family Peace Center, state and federal grant funds, again, specific activities as defined by grants, and the same with Workforce Connection. I want to point out, they're not on the list here, but our cannabis and casino funds are also special revenue funds. Cannabis funds are included in the general fund. Casino funds is a separate fund that we established. Both are restricted not by state law, but by council policy. So we have specific parameters around how those funds can be used. Any questions so far? I know I'm moving fast.
Alderwoman Prunty.
You said that cannabis is in the general fund?
Correct.
Why is that?
So the cannabis revenue is an interesting one because we are restricted by privacy laws on how we can disclose the amount of revenue that we collect. And this is guidance offered by the Department of Revenue, until we have 5 or more dispensaries in the city, we cannot disclose actual tax collections because it would violate the privacy of the dispensaries that are filing. So you could argue that if there's 2, the one that's not filing can tell what the other one's sales are if we were reporting total sales collected. So we have to be very careful about how we publish and share that information and the best way to keep track of it. We use other accounting mechanisms to keep track of the revenue and the expenses associated with it, but we don't publish it in a separate fund so as to help preserve the privacy of those businesses. And certainly, if we were to get to a position where we had 5 or more dispensaries, we could pull that out into a separate special revenue fund.
What number are we at now?
We have 3.
Thank you.
Alderman Salgado?
Yeah, just real quick on the general fund, do you guys have a breakout by the percentage of the budget for police, fire, based on the general fund that you guys could?
Certainly, and I'd be happy to share last year's budget presentation in advance of this year's budget presentation, just for the newer aldermen to be able to familiarize yourselves with that.
Thank you.
Certainly.
Alderman Bell, did you have your hand up? I'm sorry.
Yeah, just quick question. Go Rockford is funded through the redevelopment and tourism.
Yes, specifically by tourism tax.
Okay, gotcha. And those dollars aren't able to be used maybe for like health and human services?
No, they are, again, this is the recurring theme of the evening. As a non-home rule community, we can only use that 5% hotel motel tax for tourism promotion activities.
Perfect, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
So next, enterprise funds. So these are what you might consider business-like funds. So revenue can only be used to cover the operating costs and reinvest in infrastructure of the fund. We have 2, the water fund and the parking fund. The water fund funding sources include user fees, debt proceeds to fund capital improvements, grant funds, and that includes charging ourselves for the water the city uses. We do charge internally for all of the water that's consumed by city facilities. The parking fund, transient and monthly parking fines and penalties, again, grant funds when we can obtain them. And that includes charging the city for parking use. We do charge ourselves internally for the spaces that staff utilize, and that is currently subsidized by the redevelopment fund in lieu of raising rates to balance that fund.
Alderman Bell?
So the 13th ward encompasses a lot of downtown and downtown west area. Can maybe Mr. Chignoni, can you explain to me how we get to the $28 ticket price for the ABM service or parking penalty?
Those are all set by ordinance.
Okay. Mm-hmm. Okay. Or maybe some history on how the city got to $28 and maybe not 22. Like, is there a reason?
Oh, I believe the fine is $25, and then there's an administrative fee that's tacked on as part of the software system that we use for ticketing purposes.
Okay.
So we have historically had a lot of discussions. There was actually even at one point a parking committee.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Which I was fortunate to serve on. It has increased incrementally each year because.
So not the fines. Sorry, Mayor. So the actual fines are separate from the fee schedule, which we review and approve on council reviews and approves on an annual basis. So the fee schedule sets monthly parking rates and hourly transient parking rates. The actual violations are a separate section of our ordinances. They, in my time here, they've only increased once. They went from 15 to 25, and then we added on that collection fee as part of implementation of a new ticketing system.
What year was that? 2015?
Oh, it's been quite some time.
14, somewhere in there.
Probably, yes.
And what does the city get back maybe annually on that?
So our our current contract with ABM is it's a cost plus fee. So we collect all of the revenue, and then we pay them their operating costs plus a management fee. So from the parking fund as a whole is about 1.5 million short of breaking even between fees. Parking fines, fees that we charge for monthly parking, and fees that we charge for transient parking. So we are not charging enough to cover our operating costs, and we are pulling from the redevelopment fund to cover that as tourism promotion and economic development to support downtown venues and businesses.
Okay. Seems like there's a lot of history there. I maybe need to do my research on that one. But I could tell you, living downtown, knowing that we as a city want to continue to increase and redevelop and preserve our buildings in the downtown area and increase residents coming into the downtown area.
Mm-hmm.
I've had, I think, 2 conversations just today, and have had several conversations with my neighbors and other residents in the downtown area. I feel as if we're pushing people out with the high ticket price, penalty price. I don't know what we are able to do to maybe look at that and see if we can get that money somewhere else, but. Yeah, we have a lot of folks moving into the downtown area, and then they'll soon realize that you leave your car out there and then not pay the ticket, and then it starts to accumulate.
Mm-hmm.
They're starting to leave, and I've had several residents actually leave because they had to choose between paying to get a boot off of their car and to pay their rent. And so I think that's something maybe we can look at if you guys haven't already. Just want to name that, and it's a serious issue in the downtown area if we're trying to attract more residents to live in the downtown area.
If someone is getting a boot on their car, they have received a numerous number of tickets. Yeah. I would say we have looked at a number of ways
that they cannot.
I mean, one, I think you're going to get tickets if you're parking illegally downtown in any downtown. 2, if you look at some of the lots that we have protected for downtown employees or residents of downtown, so like the arts, I call it the Arts Council lot, I'm sure it's some lot number, I call it the Hinshaw lot, it's some lot number, that you can actually go there and get a permit for just over $1 a day. So if you lived in a downtown apartment, and some of these, there's other lots, some you may have to walk a block and a half to get to your apartment, but you would be able to literally have a permit for under $2 per day, so under 6, it'd be more, what, $35,
yes.
$38 for the month?
Yeah, to park outside. I get you, and I think now it's about $85 because in agreement.
That's at one of the buildings.
I think there's a few of them now doing some of the research, but we can go back to the table to have more conversations about this. Again, I just wanted to name, and I'm not trying to take away all of our time. I know it's getting late, but for the residents that I serve and who live in the 13th Ward, downtown West area, it's certainly an issue, and just want to see if we could pool those dollars somewhere else and maybe try to figure out how to reduce that cost.
Alderman Meeks.
Thank you so much. Okay. Where do I start? I don't even know where to start. I think I'm going to start with the water fund.
Okay.
It says debt proceeds to fund capital improvements. So we just recently passed the ability to have a new well.
Correct.
Right?
Yes.
Is that debt that's going to pay for that?
Correct. Yes. And we have, in recent years, used a low or no interest and sometimes forgivable loan program through the IEPA to fund not only lead service replacements, that's where we're seeing forgivable loans, but also system improvements. Those are loans we have to repay generally. But historically, we've also sold bonds to pay for improvements to our water system.
So speaking of lead service lines, these are some of the things that are big ticket items that are going to come due at some point.
Correct.
Lead service lines, pension, things like that. We had 2 years of a surplus. Can you confirm right now that we definitely will not have a surplus in 2020?
I cannot. It's still too soon. You know, we've only. It's still too. Yeah, still too soon to say where 2025 is going to land. Several of our revenue sources, sales tax, for instance, we won't receive our December sales tax payment until March. So it really is. You know, there's a lot that can happen, especially with snow and ice at end of year, that can be very unpredictable expense-wise. So I'm not ready to call 2025. It doesn't look like we will have a surplus, but as of right now, it's really too soon to tell.
Can you say, I mean, I just want to kind of like, we had big surplus.
We did. And
can you say that we definitely won't have a big surplus?
Definitely will not have a big surplus.
That's
yes.
what so do you have, what does that, so that means that we sit kind of in this area where we either will have a little bit of a surplus or maybe a deficit.
Correct.
Is that correct?
Mm-hmm.
Alrighty. So that we like the planning for that, I think we should take that into consideration as we plan, long-term things for our city. I want to thank you so much for sending over the analysis for the TIF analysis and all of that information. It helped me kind of understand where things were with the Barbara Coleman location. And so I noticed there was quite a significant deficit.
Correct.
Can you help me understand
yes.
the situation?
Yes. So the development agreement included a $6 million TIF advance. So that was part of what council approved as the total redevelopment package. That money was brought to closing on phase 1 of the project. The expectation is that once the project is built out, the increment in phase 1B, the second 1B, would repay the TIF for that TIF advance.
So when they finish,
correct,
then the revenue that's generated,
yes,
will then pay.
We'll pay that back. Okay. Yes.
Okay. And the last question that I have, do we plan, is there kind of like a long, and I know this is kind of a interesting question, but is there kind of like a long-term plan that we have in place for things like economic downturns, state funding cuts, federal funding cuts, major kind of capital overruns, things like that? Is there a fund that we have that kind of handles those situations, or do we just kind of play it by ear as it goes along?
Sure. So we are not using state or federal grant funds to provide operating revenue for core services in the general fund: police, fire, public works, community development. We do have some sections of those departments that may receive grant funding. Obviously, community development receives CDBG, home funds, but those are separate special revenue funds that we budget separately. So in the past, and the question is timely with the talk of a federal shutdown, which we are no strangers to, unfortunately. So in those funds, in the past, the general fund, or our what we call common cash, which is pooled cash from all of our funds, covers operating expenses in those funds until the federal government passes a budget or legislation that would enable those programs to continue to draw. In the event that there is a permanent change in funding or a significant reduction in funding for any of those grant programs, obviously these are City of Rockford employees that we have labor agreements in place for some of them, or rules and regulations to follow as it relates to those employees. But really, we would come back to City Council and say, City Council, we need to figure this out, right? As it relates to capital, our capital funds are really separate from our CAP and MFT funds fund our significant infrastructure improvements. If there was, and the bulk of that is locally collected sales tax revenue, right? But if there were to be a significant downturn, our CAP staff would revise the plan and come back to council and say, here's our recommendation on how we adapt to this change in funding. as in the event of an economic downturn, which we've experienced in the general fund and been in situations where we've had to make mid-year operating decisions on how to respond to declining revenue. Really, we have a general fund balance policy that is intended to help us weather in the short term fluctuations in revenue and really give council a little bit of time to make a decision on how we proceed. So if we were to have a significant drop in revenue, we would need to move fairly quickly to make some decisions on how we respond to that. But it doesn't have to be immediate because we have this general fund policy. It's 20%, right? So a fifth of our operating costs for the year that we are required by policy to keep set aside in the general fund to cover, like you said, a revenue downturn, maybe a significant weather event or some natural disaster or something like that. And that level is set in at the recommendation of national level GFOA, Government Finance Officers Association. We reviewed their best practices on fund balance. We reviewed several of our peers. Fund balance requirements vary depending on where you live geographically, right? We don't have hurricanes, we don't have earthquakes, thankfully, yet, right? But we do have our own specific risks here in the Midwest, snow being a big one, flooding being one. So being able to keep a fund balance that gives us the ability to respond to those events without immediately having to, cut staff, right, and give city council some time to make decisions is really what that fund balance policy is for.
That's what I wanted to understand. That
Absolutely.
Feel much more comfortable. I just want to also throw out there, thank you so much. I feel like you are full of information. Whenever I feel like I need to understand something, you are always available, always accessible, always there with the information.
Sure.
And I just want to thank you so much for everything you do.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Okay, so I will move to the next slide here, internal service funds. So these operate similarly to our enterprise funds, but they work internally. So we have several business-like funds that serve our internal customers, and those are funded by charges back to the using departments. This includes our IT fund, central garage that repairs and maintains all of our vehicles, building maintenance, which is, again, a public works operating unit that maintains all of the city-owned facilities. Risk management covers insurance, claims against the city, and damages to city property. Our health fund operates like we are a self-insured health plan. 911 charges back to just police and fire, but that charges back their share of call taking and dispatching services. And then workers' compensation, which we're also primarily self-insured for. So these do not provide services outside of the organization. Generally, on occasion, we do ITs that our records management system project is an example of one situation where we work across agencies and do charge back to the sheriff's office and some other area police departments, but primarily these are serving internal customers only.
Alderman Salgado?
Yeah, just question. It's one question, but for two of the items here. Health cost.
Yes.
What are we looking at? One, and then two, I know we just did the settlement. We took our bonds out, for that settlement. Where's that coming from, and how are we doing on our tort liability?
Sure. So the debt service payments on the settlement that the City Council approved selling bonds for are actually being paid directly from the police department because that's where the risk or the liability occurred. The risk management fund generally handles small dollar claims against the city. That's also where we pay for damages to city property if someone hits a street light and we're pursuing reimbursement from their insurance company. We pay for the repair there. The revenue comes back into the risk management fund to offset that. So the risk management fund is actually, we have, the legal department has done an excellent job of resolving some longstanding claims against the city. We've also, through the surplus funds that we've had over the last couple of years, have made some transfers into the risk management fund to help cover some of those claims costs. So the risk management fund is probably in the best shape financially that it's been since I've been here, 23 years. So that the risk management is well positioned to handle, and we do not have the level of significant outstanding claims pending that we have in the past either. So the health fund is a different story. I think we've seen a significant increase in claims experience over the last 2 years. Right now we're planning a 5% premium increase internally for the 2026 budget that we'll present to you, and we will need several years of increases to bring the health fund back into balance.
Thank you.
Certainly. Next slide here, fiduciary funds. So these are funds held in trust for others. For us, that's police and fire pension funds that are funded by property taxes, personal property replacement taxes, other general city revenues when property tax and PPRT aren't sufficient to meet the minimum annual contribution, and employee contributions. And I failed to mention, additionally, the casino funds that council approved to be contributed in addition to our annual required contribution. But the majority of our pension fund assets are invested in by the statewide consolidated funds. Here locally, we're generally keeping a small amount on hand to pay monthly payroll and any operating costs for the month. And both the police and fire pension boards have cash policies in place that direct staff on how much cash to keep on hand and when to request funds from the consolidated pension fund and when to send cash to the consolidated fund. So we're not holding cash locally unnecessarily. Oh, go ahead. Oh,
Alderwoman Prunty.
How much of the casino fund did we agree to?
We agreed to $1 million per fund. So $1 million annually is going to police and $1 million annually to fire. So 2 of the 7.
Alderman Beach.
Is our agreement with the casino for a number of years, or does it go on forever?
10 years on the revenue guarantee, if I recall correctly. Yes, so 10 years of a $7 million annual revenue guarantee from the date that the permanent casino opened.
$2 million of that 7 is committed at least for 10 years.
Correct.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Alderman Salgado.
As a follow-up to that, how are we positioning from a liability standpoint from our pension funds? Are we behind? To what level? And what are we capturing to based on the liability?
So we are making the minimum required contribution under state law. So we are not in any risk of legal noncompliance with the city's obligations. With the additional casino funds, really we're paying above and beyond what we're legally required to pay. The policy specifically said it's not supplementing current revenue, it's in addition to, right? So, I think pension funding is a complicated topic, one that I could spend probably a couple more hours discussing. I won't, but I would say that the city is meeting its legal obligations. We continue to take steps in conjunction with feedback from the pension funds themselves, the pension boards, and their support, and increasing our annual contribution in a manner that the city can afford to keep up with.
So from that standpoint, did we do an actuarial?
We do.
on that?
Every year, we do an actuarial study.
That's where I'm getting to.
Sure.
Because they're, the number of employees and the percentage of that liability.
Yes.
And so what I'm referring to is, how are we making good progress on that? I know we're paying above and beyond, but there's an actuarial that's done on that.
We can provide you it.
From a liability standpoint. And
Yeah, so to be honest, our funded level continues to decline, but that's because we continue to adjust our actuarial assumptions to make them more conservative. So, and that's been a process over the last probably 7 or 8 years. So, I think compared to other pension funds throughout the state, we're in pretty good shape.
Alderwoman Meeks. You're welcome.
I was just wondering, we talked about the $7 million guarantee from the casino fund.
Correct.
If there is additional funding, can I assume that goes into the general fund?
Additional funding
on top of the $7 million from the casino?
Well, there is no, they're paying property taxes, but we're keeping the levy, we've kept the levy flat. So there's no actual increase in property tax revenue because of the casino.
Yeah.
So you mean if there's revenue collected beyond the $7 million?
Yes, I was under the impression that there is additional revenue that was collected from the casino fund on top of the $7 million that's guaranteed.
So any general sales tax revenue collected from sales at the casino would go into the general fund.
So is that the additional money that I'm speaking of?
So the casino, there are really kind of 4, or I guess 5 sources of revenue from the casino: property taxes, which is no increase to us because we did not increase the levy; sales taxes, so that's when they sell a T-shirt or those sorts of merchandise there, that would be filed under general sales tax and come into the general fund. Food and beverage tax on the restaurants there, that is revenue to the redevelopment fund. And then under the $7 million guarantee, we have an admissions tax and then the actual betting tax. So those 2 revenue sources are what we're tracking in our casino fund, and that's what's subject to the $7 million guarantee. So we have not, they opened last August. We haven't completed a full 12 months of filings yet. So we will be having a true up here at some point, but where we're looking sort of year to date, they have not yet met the $7 million guarantee. So if they were to surpass that money would just remain in the casino fund to be spent at council's direction.
Okay, so that's where I was getting.
Okay.
So if they
It's a base.
exceed,
That's 7,
it's a minimum.
I don't
not
want to
a
interrupt
right.
you, but that 7 that's a floor. They do better, we get more.
yeah, that's what I was kind of understanding. So they do better, we get more. And I just want to kind of understand when. I'm going to say when they do better and we get more, how will we decide where that funding goes?
Yeah, and I think certainly when we do that annual reconciliation, we report that back to council. It does not, that revenue does not just get sort of lost in the shuffle of the general fund.
That's what I want to.
It remains in the casino fund, and council can make a decision at that annual reconciliation.
So at what point are we going to kind of understand those numbers to kind of know what we're working with in subsequent years related to the casino fund?
Sure. So we will, as soon as we have that annual reconciliation and the communication with Hard Rock about that, we'll share that with council. We've also added a month to our monthly report, the casino revenue, just so council can track on a monthly basis how that's performing. That was on our last year-to-date report in August, and we'll make sure council gets that every month going forward so you can tell how they're performing.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Thank you. I know we have other questions. You have one more slide, right?
Yes, sir.
Do you want to just finish that one slide, and then I know we have a couple of questions out there.
Yeah, so I just want to make sure everyone understands we collect a wide variety of revenues and have a significant amount of regulation that sits on top of that, right? So we're looking at state laws, federal laws, accounting rules that are set by GASB, or the Governmental Accounting Standards Board, commitments to the community, like our 1% CAP sales tax that we committed to the voters would be used for infrastructure purposes only, even though state law opens that up for other purposes. Council policy, like our cannabis tax, and then grant requirements and rules. So our accounting team keeps all of these various rules and regulations in mind when they're recording not only revenue but expenses related to that revenue, with the goal of really audit-proof accounting work at the end of the day. So happy to answer questions.
Thank you. Alderwoman Prunty.
Yes, I heard when we were talking about the $7 million in the cap, and we said that $2 million was police, fire.
Correct.
Do we have a number for? That's also where Rockford Promise.
Correct. Yes.
And so, of that $7 million, two
is to pensions.
Okay. And
2.1 is to Rockford Promise. Okay. Another $1 million is to police and fire capital for facility improvements. We have an amount designated for economic development specifically in disadvantaged areas, yep. If I recall correctly. Buyer Stadium was part of the first year's allocation. Correct.
First couple, I think.
Yeah.
And then arts and culture is in.
Arts and culture, and then there's a commitment to a Hard Rock Foundation as well. And I can share the policy again with all of you, so that you have that handy. Thank you. Mm-hmm.
Any other questions for Director Haggerty? Alderman Bell.
Director, you mentioned something about the 1% CIP sales tax.
Yes.
As it relates to, there was a commitment or promise made to the community, mm-hmm. How you'd spend it. What was that again?
So when we originally instituted the 1% CAP sales tax, the state law that enabled that for a non-home rule community specifically said that it had to be used for infrastructure purposes. So that we asked the voters to approve a 1% sales tax that could only be used on certain things according to state law. Since that was approved, state law changed and gave us the ability to use that 1% sales tax for any general municipal purpose. We, however, continued to commit with every 5 years we do a referendum to re-enable that sales tax and commit to the public as part of that referendum question that we will continue to use it for infrastructure. And that is how we have, since its inception, that is exclusively how we've spent those funds.
And understand. So, should a crisis occur, how are we going to respond with that maybe wiggle room that we have with the 1% sales tax because of the state changing the legislation? Go ahead. Sorry.
Yeah, I would say that we don't really have wiggle room because the referendum question that was posed to the public that they voted on gave us the authority to collect that tax for infrastructure purposes.
And that's maybe streets, roads, roads,
public infrastructure.
Sidewalks.
So that could be, sidewalks, roads, bridges, stormwater, just about anything that our CAP team handles.
Would housing fall under that? Housing development?
Housing would not be, I don't believe that unless it was publicly owned, it would be considered to be public infrastructure. It's public infrastructure.
The public roads, if someone was doing a subdivision, the roads and the sidewalks could be used to help offset some of the costs of the developer who's building that housing development. I mean, there's ways to, I guess, make it beneficial there, but...
Yeah, okay. So we could figure out new ways, and I'm sure you already have, figure out how to offset some of the costs and incentivize developers looking to develop housing, as we were in a housing crisis, to lay the foundation of roads and such.
We have taken a number of approaches to assisting developers in residential TIFs. We've public infrastructure. We've made a number of contributions to housing programs.
Have we with the 1%?
Not with the CA. I take that back. I'm certain we have likely used CAP sales tax to fund infrastructure attached to a housing project. I can't name them off the top of my head, but certainly a residential road is public infrastructure, and if that's a new construction road in conjunction with a housing project, that would certainly fall under the definition in the state law.
Director Wise, do you mind if I ask a quick question to you? Is this something that maybe in your department we can start to talk about and look at as it relates to incentivizing or just educating our developers that we have this maybe available, if there is funding available? Again,
Well, I think that our CAP team would say there isn't, because it's programmed out for 5 years and then some for infrastructure, for the public infrastructure that we already own, replacing and maintaining that. So, but certainly that's a conversation and a policy decision that council can make.
Okay, thank you.
I would just add some of our underfunding sources like TIF and CDBG, when they're supporting housing, it's the same cost that they can cover. So that's also what Director Haggerty is pointing out. Like, we have offered that incentive. So these funding sources can all only do the same thing. Like, we're looking, so when it's not that we haven't offered the infrastructure piece when we've been in development things, in conversations. Some of those can also only do it that way. And so it would be probably best to start with those funding sources and create the incentives with those. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
Any other questions? Alderman Frost.
I just think we have to be very careful when we've reached out to our community and with referendums on specific matters.
Agreed.
And I really don't think we can have any wiggle room with respect to what we ask. We would lose complete confidence and trust of our whole community if we ever violated the terms of our referendum.
Yeah.
Any other, Alderman Bell?
Yeah, I just want to, with respect to the housing crisis, have folks all through this community that, are either living with friends and family and need a place to live, or also laying down in our streets. I just want to explore any way to address that issue, and just wanted to ask that question to see if we did have any wiggle room to look at, verbiage and things like that. So, appreciate it.
Thank you. Any other questions? Alderman Beach.
Thank you, Your Honor. I'd like to just make a comment here. I certainly respect, as you would call it, wiggle room, but there's certain areas, as Alderman Frost indicated, that we went to this public and we got a vote to take that 1% and how to spend it. And we dare not go back on what we said we do. And every 5 years, we come back to a referendum and we have to say it all over again. So we're not saying that it's not wrong to look for other sources, but you're going to get a pushback from some of us if we try to mess with that 1% fund that we told the people how we're going to spend it. And we just have to do that. Okay, thank you.
Other questions? Alderwoman Prunty.
Thank you. Since it is a referendum and the voters do choose, does the referendum always have to say the same thing?
No, it does not. But this body would be able to decide what that referendum would say if we decided to bring it back out to referendum.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Alderman Bell.
Yeah, just to entertain the conversation a little further, when is the 1% CIP sales tax up again?
26, 27?
20.
So here coming up again, maybe we should entertain a conversation with the residents in the city to maybe see if we can change the verbiage there and address the housing shortage in our community. Just a thought.
Yes, it is. Any other discussion? Dr. Haggerty, thank you, and your team for all the work that you do every day and for putting together this presentation.
Thank you.
Genuinely appreciate you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Is there a second? There is no discussion. All those in favor say aye.